Thank you for coming. My name is Alita Williams, and I am president of the Rotary Club of Chicago. I would like to convene our 5,680th meeting. And with that, I would like to bring up Connor G to do our thought of the day. Sorry,
Well, thank you so much. It's good to see everybody again. Hope everybody has been doing well. So the thought for the day, obviously, is World Polio Day, right? And we have been talking about polio for quite some time, right? And so I think a lot of people, there's something called, unfortunately, called polio fatigue, right? Where people are just kind of like, we've been talking about Rotary for, we've been talking about ending polio for a really long time. We know that that's an initiative, but we kind of want to move on, right? And who doesn't, right? But we haven't eradicated the disease yet, right? And so I think we really need to kind of double down our efforts, and I think we need to look at it. There's a lot of positive indications. So I think you'll hear a little bit from Ina about her experience, but we've seen the numbers lately, and it's very similar. It's modeling what Africa looked like in terms of their numbers before they were declared and certified polio-free as a continent. So I think we're very confident that we're close, but we can't give up, right? And so I think about a lot of things in my life, right, as I became close to a lot of things, right? And instead of, giving up, you push through, you persevere, and you come out on the other end stronger. Right. And so I think about that from polio's perspective, right? This is something that we are so close to eradicating, and we cannot give up as an organization. And unfortunately, it's going to take a lot of money and funding to make sure that we cross that finish line and eradicate polio from the face of the earth. And that's the promise that we made to the children of this world. And so that's a promise that we need to keep. So just think, in your own life in relation to polio about really kind of making sure that you're seeing things through and that you're doubling down your efforts. So thank you.
Thank you so much, District Governor Connor. As always, we will do our best to get to all the Zoom questions. Please honor everyone's time and keeping your questions succinct and one question per person. If you are on the Zoom and have questions, please put your questions into the chat, and we will be sure to do that. And with that, I would have the great honor of introducing Ms. Ina Pinkney. It's my immense pleasure to introduce Ina Pinkney. She's a world-acclaimed chef, restaurateur, author, and advocate. Her amazing restaurant, Ina's, closed in 2013, but she is still a fixture in the culinary world. Her awards, recognitions, and recipes are many and loved by all that know her. Her work with polio is what brings her here today. She is the chair of the Global Post-Polio Syndrome Advocate Group, which is under the Rotary Disability umbrella. She speaks often about the late effects of polio to Rotary groups and the Gates Foundation, and just recently at our zone event, and the importance of vaccination in our community. Please welcome Ina Pinkney.
Just did. That's just great. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to start with what I usually end with, and that is a thank you for all the hours and the dollars that you have spent raising money for polio. It has never been lost on me, the grace with which you have done this. And to think that in my lifetime that I will see the end of it overwhelms and delights and excites me. So I'm going to take you back to Labor Day, 1944. I was 18 months old. My father came in to take me out of my crib, and I tried to stand up and I fell down. And I tried again to stand up and fell down. And when he touched my forehead and realized that I had a high fever, he knew in that instant that the polio epidemic that was sweeping New York City had come to Brooklyn, New York. He was terrified. He picked me up, carried me to the corner side entrance of our building, our apartment building, where we had our family doctor. And Dr. Suna immediately had my dad pull me across his belly tightly and did a spinal, took the results into the lab in the back, and came out and said, "It's polio." And they got into his car and they drove to the local hospital. And my father and Dr. Suna looked at each other and looked at the children lying there. Parents only allowed to visit for 1 hour a week, and that was behind glass. And Dr. Suna said, "We cannot leave her here. Let's take her home and we'll figure it out together." And they took me home, and days later, when the fever finally subsided, the damage was evident that my right leg and my right side was not okay. They called the March of Dimes, and the March of Dimes put me in braces, and then they watched me, and nothing was done. And one day, they noticed when the brace was off that my foot had dropped. And so they called the March of Dimes, and they put me in a cast to keep the foot up. My father said he spent many nights sitting and watching me and couldn't understand why nothing could be done. He read in the newspaper that Sister Elizabeth Kenny was in New York City. She was from Australia and had treated an outbreak of polio in the Aboriginal communities. He read that she did not have a cure, but she certainly had a treatment. And he called every single hotel in New York until he could find her. And when he did, he spoke to her assistant and said, "I need Sister to see my daughter." And she said, "Oh, Mr. Brody, I'm so sorry, but Sister cannot see any child in a private home. If she was in hospital, it would be okay. Because the doctors are giving her such a hard time, she can't open herself up to any more criticism." And they hung up. And my father sat at my bedside again that night. And the next day called and said, "I will do anything to get Sister to see my daughter." And she acquiesced. My father borrowed a car, drove to Manhattan, picked up a large woman with a very big hat sitting in the back, the assistant sitting in the front. And when they got to the curb of our apartment building in Brooklyn, Sister said, "The child's doctor is here, yes?" And he said, "No." And she said, "I don't leave the car without the doctor." And once again, he ran over to Dr. Suna's office, who left a patient right there and escorted Sister Elizabeth Kenny into our one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. The doorway was about 15 feet down the long hallway to the kitchen. My mother had put blankets and towels on the table. She had been told to boil a pot of water. My father had to go and get all wool blankets from the black market, St. Mary's all wool blankets, and they cut it into strips, and the strips were in the water. My mother had me sitting against the wall where the table was, with my legs out and the cast on my foot. Sister asked her assistant for a scissor. She cut off the cast, and according to my father's exact words, she hurled it across the kitchen and said, "We are not treating a broken leg, we are treating polio." And then 3 pair of rubber gloves that she put on and wrung out some of the strips and wrapped this hot, wet wool around my leg, and then dry strips of wool around that. And in 1944, there was no plastic, so she took an oilcloth tablecloth and wrapped it around my leg and waited until it all cooled down. And then cocoa butter to massage the leg. Sister said that if the muscle is in spasm and you take it out of spasm and it has no place to go because it's braced, what then? She said we need to keep that muscle soft and warm and stretched out as much as we can. And that was her treatment. She set me up with an assistant to my mom once a week to come in to be sure that I was getting the good massage therapy after the hot pack treatments. And those hot pack treatments went on for about a year. After about 3 months, I was mobile. Not well, but I was mobile. My leg was shorter, my shoe size was smaller, but I was able to navigate. And that's how my childhood was. I wasn't able to play with the kids. And so when the parents brought their chairs out under the big tree at the sidewalk, I would listen. And in those early years, I became a committed listener. And I also learned adult conversation, because if they were going to listen to me, I had to say something cogent. I learned a lot by the time I was 6. I learned that having a disability was a fate worse than death. That's what they said. I learned that when you went to the hospital, you went to die. I learned that whatever this was every day when I got up was what I had. And so I was about to get 6 of them because they said I was going to the hospital. Whereas the man they talked about yesterday got 39 of them, whatever that is, this day-to-dayness. So they took me to the hospital. And I was not afraid, because at 6 you can have no grief for a life not lived. I was interested in what was happening to me. I looked around constantly, and my personal hell was the ether mask. But when I woke up, I thought they made a mistake. And I understood in that nanosecond what second chances could be. And everybody in my life always got a second chance. And all the toys I gave to my brother, I took back. I had decided at that moment, based on the book Madeline, about a little girl who was not afraid of anything, that I was going to be like Madeline. She lived in a little school with 12 other girls. They were afraid when they went to the zoo, but not Madeline. She was right up at the cage, looking right at the tigers and the lions, and that was going to be me. I think back now to that time of knowing so much when I was 6, and I wish I could have written my 6-year-old self a letter to tell her what her life could be. So I sat down and I wrote that letter, and I'll share that with you today. My dear Ina, you have begun your life in the hardest way you can imagine. Polio at 18 months, which will lead to a childhood being marginalized, ignored, ostracized, and bullied. You will learn your first lesson when you understand that you are kinder than those around you. Your father will be the one who instills in you that you only have to get up one more time, then you fall. And he will always be there to part another Red Sea of impossibility. You will marry Bill Pinkney, who will sail around the world solo, and when you understand that his best life will be spent on the sea and yours on land, divorce him 36 years later. You will each leave the marriage better people than when you began it, and neither of you will ever forget why you loved each other. Your life experiences will read like a novel and seem a dream to many. You will hang out with Maya Angelou in Greenwich Village, dance with Fred Astaire, go skydiving, class 10 whitewater rafting and scuba diving. You will ski the Alps and the Rockies on your one good leg, feed Wolfgang Puck and Julia Child and many Chicago chefs who will grow before your eyes and make that city a world-class food destination. You will experience great kindness from Anthony Bourdain, wipe the brow of Mikhail Baryshnikov in the wings of the ballet. You will appear on a global live stream on World Polio Day and speak about the Global Polio Eradication Initiative for the Gates Foundation and Rotary. And Bill Gates will follow you on Twitter. You will try hard to find your place in corporate America, having 21 jobs and getting fired from 19 of them, but learning something from each one that you will need and use later. You will be fearless, Ina, but never reckless, and always see yourself as the causative agent in your story, never the victim. You will bake your first cake at age 37 and find a strange and exciting joy in that. From that one cake, you will build a baking kitchen, teach yourself how to bake, and create a dessert catering business in 1980 when that does not exist. You will open your restaurant in 1991 at age 48 and realize there is great power in being underestimated. Ina's Kitchen will change the landscape of breakfast forever in Chicago, and it will matter. You will ultimately be known as an entrepreneur way ahead of her time, who created the smoking ban, co-founded the Green Restaurant Coalition, and found a recipe for success in compassion, exacting standards, and sheer willpower. Ina's Kitchen will become a theater piece and a stage upon which the Ina will be reborn. Every life-changing experience you will have, every person you will meet, the family of choice you will assemble will enter through that door. You will try with all your might to fit in and, like most polio survivors, pass for normal for many years until the late effects of polio take their toll. First with a brace, then a cane, then a walker, and now a scooter. It will change you and encourage a new direction and commitment. After a 33-year career that will bring you much joy and heartache, you will find your exit strategy and pivot to new and exciting ways to use your knowledge and experience. You will write a memoir cookbook. You will be the subject of an award-winning documentary called Breakfast at Ina's. You will write a monthly column in the Chicago Tribune about breakfast. Companies will hire you to speak at conferences about breakfast, and you will finally get to eat breakfast. What you will love the most are the relationships that will sustain you, especially with the Rotarians you will meet around the country when you are honored to speak. And you will accept it all because you will feel the grace of all you have tried to accomplish and are no longer 6 years old and afraid that you don't belong. So I learned a lot, and I shared a lot. And I always wanted to ask myself the question, and when I take my last breath, Ina, did you do enough? And I want the answer to be yes. And when the opportunity was presented to me to take over this post-polio syndrome advocacy group that would be global, there was no question but that it was exactly what I needed to do. In our hemisphere, we are an aging and a dying population. We had polio before the vaccine. My goal is to teach people how to advocate for themselves, people around the world. And when we have an open meeting and I hear from people and they say to me, oh, I was invited to speak at my church group and I got there and it was up a flight of stairs. I say, and what did you do? They say, oh, I told them I couldn't meet with them and they'd have to find a new place to meet if they wanted to hear from me. And that's our goal, is to teach advocacy. We are concerned about all the children who have had polio in the last 20 years, who will be like me in another 20 to 30 to 40 years. And we want to be sure we leave a legacy of how to do this. We understand there's a new polio vaccine that was just shipped to Africa. We didn't even know there was one being worked on out of Belgium, and 600 million doses just went. So hopefully there will be no vaccine-derived cases. So far this year, I think we've had under 20 wild cases, which is a little different than in 1952 when 350,000 cases around the world. So I come here today, as Connor said, to try to tell you that I understand the donor fatigue, but the imagination is very, very real. And can we please never stop until it's ended in my lifetime? Thank you for having me here today. So are there questions on the Zoom? Let's see what we got.
Are there any questions in the room?
Anybody in the room? Don't be afraid. Yes. Oh, food related. Wow. I can relate to that.
So it's twofold. What's your favorite cake? And what's your favorite breakfast?
Oh, so I never got a chance to eat a hot meal at my restaurant. And the thing I wanted the most when I closed the restaurant, and it'll be 10 years this New Year's Eve that I closed, for the 30 days, the first 30 days I was home, I had the same thing every single day. I had 2 sunny side up eggs done in some olive oil so the edges were nice and crispy. I had the best brioche toasted. I had the best coffee with whipping cream. I've committed myself to a slow death by whipping cream. You can go however you like. And I ate that every day because that's all I craved during the years that I had a restaurant that I couldn't have a hot meal. So, sunny side up, toasted brioche with a lot of sweet butter. I told my doctor, I said, if you ever give me 2 weeks to live, there will not be enough brioche and sweet butter in the world. I'm just letting you know now. I'm letting you know now. So, and great, great, great coffee. Intelligentsia made a special blend for me that managed, to live up to the level of my food. So that's what I ate. Now, as far as my cake, I have a taste memory of a blackout cake from Ebinger's in Brooklyn. And it was a chocolate cake, but very light crumb. And the filling was not frosting, it was almost like a chocolate pudding. And then they would take one of the layers and they would crumb it and they'd put it all over the cake on top of this pudding. And I can still taste it. And I had a chef out in Lisle at a deli out there who made it, and it came really close, really close. So that's really my favorite cake. Does that help you? Are you taking me out to lunch or what? I just a breakfast. There you go. Anybody else? Marshall?
So, Ina, before the before the meeting, we talked briefly about kind of vaccine misinformation. Could you just share your thoughts about how do we combat all of the misinformation that's out there that's scaring people away from vaccinations?
It's a question that we ask ourselves in every meeting because we are trying to understand the disinformation. And we really don't know what to do. And I don't think anybody knows what to do. May I share that story that I told you? I was speaking at a Rotary in Wilmington, North Carolina, and the couple that was caring for me, I always have handlers, they take care of me when I'm in a foreign city. And the woman was getting ready to become the new district governor, and her husband is a pediatrician. And I spent some time with him one afternoon, and I said, tell me about your practice. Tell me about our vaccinations. When people come in, what do you do? And he said, we have to approach it very gently. And we say, if you have any concerns, we're here to answer them. And we don't have to give them all the shots at once. We can spread it out. We can do the measles, then later on the mumps. And he said, and they give me a hard stop, a hard no. I said, and then what happens? He said, then they leave my practice and they go to where a doctor never asks. And so when I get to meet people, and I have some elders who say, I don't know what to do about my daughter who doesn't want to vaccinate my grandchildren. If I get to meet somebody in that age range, I say to them, so when did you have polio? And they go, I didn't have polio. And I went, oh, that's right, because you were vaccinated before to get to school. And hopefully it'll resonate somewhere. But I think it's a problem we will have from now on, because it's being passed on to the children of the anti-vaxxers. And it's rare when a child will reject the family and go on their own when they turn 18 and get their own vaccinations. I don't know what to do about this. We all don't know what to do about this. And I fear for us. I fear. Polio is a plane ride away. Look at the man in Rockland County. The man, he came over from Israel. He had gotten the oral vaccine, so he had a vaccine derived, and it was in his system, and it mutates in the gut, and he might never have washed his hands when he went to the bathroom, and he shook hands with this man who was never vaccinated, part of the Hasidic community up there, and the guy's paralyzed now. And this is it. There's no answer for this. Marshall, I don't know what to say. Marshall's daughter is a pediatrician. I fear for her. I fear because she's going to come across this so many times. You know, we see it with COVID as well. I mean, that's where it started. I had post-traumatic distress when I was aware of, my God, the movie theaters are closed and the playgrounds are closed and everything is closed. And it reminded me of my childhood. It was the same thing. Nobody knew how it was transmitted. And so everything was shut down. Shut down. So thank you for bringing that up. But I don't know. If I had an answer, I'd give it to you first.
We do have a Zoom question from Roz Schnick, who
Oh.
says, so Ina, do you still make your wonderful heavenly hots?
Oh, my pancakes, my Heavenly Hots pancakes. She's a sucker for them. And she's up in La Crosse. I made them for her. The answer is yes, yes. And right now I'm trying to come up with a sort of a mix, because nobody keeps sour cream in their house. You know, it's one of those things that people don't usually buy. But I found dry sour cream. So maybe if I mix that with the sugar and the cake flour, and then all you have to do is add some eggs, maybe we can do a little project here. Raise money for polio, Heavenly Hots for polio. We'll figure it out. Thank you, Roz. I love you. Anybody else?
Can you tell us more about the initiative you're doing with Rotary? Because I personally heard about it, but I don't know the details. Will you be speaking or?
So thank you so much, Mark. We have a meeting once a month with our steering committee, and the steering committee is from UK and Ireland and Cape Town and Colombia and US. And we're now going to start adding people from around the world and changing the time of our meetings so that we can acknowledge the time differences, because we want to be sure we get India and Africa and South Asia. And so the steering committee has put together aims and mission statement, and now we're putting together a little constitution. But our goal is to be sure that everyone knows what post-polio syndrome is. It's the only disease in the World Health Organization Book of Illnesses that has 3 entries: poliomyelitis, polio sequelae, and then post-polio syndrome. When I started feeling something and I didn't know what it was, I was 42 years old, and I kept thinking something's wrong. I don't know what it is. I feel weaker in some places. I'm having some swallowing issues. I didn't understand any of it. And I don't know how we found anything before Google. And I heard there was an organization that had the word polio in it, and they were having a meeting in St. Louis. And I said to my husband, I'll be back. And I got in the car and I drove to St. Louis from here. And I walked into the grand ballroom of a Marriott hotel, and there were 300 people there, all with the same issues that I was having. And we all looked at each other as though we had found our long-lost relatives. And it wasn't always the same, because polio touched every single thing in your spinal column. So you didn't know where it would have an impact. And so I was sitting and talking to somebody who never had any symptoms as a child, but was having post-polio syndrome now and is now in a wheelchair, but never had any symptoms of paralysis. Not everybody did. So everybody had a different story. I have a friend who really, her hands are not working really well. She's still walking around, but her hands. So you just don't know. And doctors said to me, oh, it's because you're aging. And I said, I'm 42. That's not aging yet, you know? And then they want to do a rule out. They don't believe, a lot of doctors don't believe there's such a thing. So is it MS? Is it any of the other, I lost my word, but Guillain-Barré? Is it right, is it something, forgive me, my word finding is slow today. But is it anything else? And they try everything. And then they're finally left when someone will advocate for themselves and give them Dr. Richard Bruno's book on the polio paradox, and they go, oh, I guess you have post-polio syndrome. But it takes a long time, a long, long time. I have one story that I'll tell, and I can't use the curse word, but you'll know what I mean. So many, many, many years ago, a friend said to me, go see this doctor over at Rehabilitation Institute. He does some polio, and I think you should go see him. So I went to see him. And he did his examination, and he goes, I think you need a long leg brace. And I said, why? He said, because your knee is not going to hold up for this. And so you need a long leg brace. And I said, but I still have a quadricep, and I still have a hamstring, and I still have a calf muscle that's moving, and I still have a little bit from my ankle down. I still have that. Why would you want to immobilize my leg? Well, I think that's the right thing to do. And I smiled at him as sweet as I could, and I went, F no. And he kind of looked at me, and I said, thank you for your time, and I left. I had a reason to meet him about 15 years later in a different environment, and he kept looking at me, and he goes, you look familiar. And I said, well, you wanted to put me in a long leg brace. And he went, oh, you're F no. I said, that would be me. And then he said to me the most amazing thing. He said, you taught me so much that day. I would have ruined your gait. I would have ruined your back. I would have ruined your leg if you had listened to me. And I said, and so what did you learn that day? He said, to always listen to a polio. They know more about their bodies than I will ever know. And there he was. So he admitted it. And I just saw him last week, and I brought him a pound cake. Okay. And I never cursed again. Right. I didn't have to. All right. The second time he knew it. Okay. So there we are. We are at a place where we have to take care of ourselves. We have to speak up for ourselves. And once polio is eradicated, and once Rotary, rings that bell for the last time, and we know it, I never want you to forget that we're still here. We're still here, and we will be here, and it's up to us to leave the legacy for the people who are coming behind us long after we're gone. Can I eat my dessert now?
In a minute.
Not quite yet.
There
Not
you
quite
go.
yet.
All right.
Stay there. Stay there.
So thank you so much, Ina. She always gives such a great speech. You are getting something.
I thought I got it. Being invited to the dance is everything.
Oh.
And nobody, again, asked me about Nancy with Fred Astaire. No, too late. You have to invite me back.
So we would like to, for your work, polio, and all the work that you've done in the world, we would like to present you with an honorary lifetime membership to the Rotary Club of Chicago. And Connor's going to pin you with your official Rotary One member pin.
Darling, I so appreciate this. There we are. Thank you. Dear, thank you. Dear Ben, thank you. Hannah, do you want to tell them where you were when you got engaged?
I had breakfast at night. I proposed at the Field Museum, actually, in the Jug Room, but we had breakfast.
See, Hannah, diamond this big.
What? Explain this big, please.
Giant. Big is like a football.
Okay. He's good for it.
And then he came to breakfast.
Okay, and then also for all of our speakers, we give a wonderful coffee cup from the Rotary Club of Chicago and some cookies from Al's Cookie Mix. Alvin Green started a cookie company because his son is autistic, and he started a cookie company for him and his friends so that when they aged out of the Chicago CPS system, they had a way to support themselves and the next step in their lives. So with that, you get some cookies, my favorite double chocolate with cranberry and pretzels. And then if you use the QR code, you get 10% off your first order. And the best thing about it is like you build your cookie. It's not like you just order a cookie. You tell them what the base is, what you want to put in it, and you can make it all your own. So. And moving on with more World Polio Day. Well, we'll do that in a second. Oh, there it is. Mary is going to come up and talk about our event this evening with polio.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alita. And of course, thank you, Ina. Your courage and perseverance is just so motivational, but your experience really highlights what a terrible disease polio is. And to introduce myself, I'm Mary Dankowski. I'm the Polio Plus Chair for District 6450. As Alita mentioned, we have an event coming up tonight at the Berghoff Restaurant at 5 o'clock. I put one flyer on your tables. I have many more flyers. If you haven't registered, you can walk in. It's from 5 to 8. We've got a German band, a drink ticket, German appetizers. It'll be fabulous. So please join us. I want to give you a little information, though, about where we stand with polio. As Connor mentioned, we are in very close to a home stretch when we compare ourselves to how Africa was declared eradicated. We have 9 cases as of October 17th in the world, so 6 in Pakistan and 3 in Afghanistan. And that is why we are keeping the promise we made to the children of the world to eradicate this terrible disease. We are still vaccinating over 30 million children in India, and more children all over the world. The virus is still around, and even though there is polio fatigue, just think about how we could redirect all the money that's going to polio once it's eradicated. Our $50 million of Rotary money becomes $150 million with the Gates match. $150 million once we're eradicated could be redirected to do so many wonderful things. So the sooner the better. So I'm offering you, besides going to Berghoff, another opportunity. We established a Polio Plus Society in the district a couple years ago. We developed customized pins, which I'd like to give you one, Ina, too, just to have. You could be an official member of the Polio Plus Society. The rest of you, it's going to cost you. And what it costs you is a commitment of $100 a year till polio is eradicated. A very small commitment, but very meaningful. The first year we established the society, we had 250 members of our district join. That's $25,000 a year. And if we stick to our 5-year plan, that's $125,000 plus the Gates match. So the $100 a year would make a big difference. I have pledge forms. I'm giving you the abbreviated way to join today, so you don't have to go through the multiple steps. And I have the list of people who are already a member if you're not quite sure if you are or not. But see me afterwards. I'll be in the back. All you have to do is sign the pledge form, put your email down, and I will give you your custom one-of-a-kind Polio Plus pin, which we have limited supply. So once they're gone, they're gone. So thank you.
Okay, so we don't have any visiting Rotarians in the room. Do we have any visiting Rotarians online? Okay. And visitors in the room. Anna, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Anna Voloshina. I am a Ukrainian-born chef and cookbook author, and I'm here with Aina. She invited me, and I'm very inspired to be here. And hearing Aina's story, I watched the movie. I watched it, but hearing it live, it's totally special feeling. And she's incredible, and everything she does is passionate, compassionate, and brave. So I learned so much from her during my trip, and I'm just happy to be here and to meet all of you. Thank you so much for having me.
And we have one more guest in the room.
Good afternoon. No, hey. Well, my name is Michael Stablin. I'm happy to be joining you guys again. There's so many familiar and friendly faces from when I was here 2 weeks ago as a guest. Just for those of you who didn't meet me or I didn't get to meet you, I'm moving here to Chicago after having just almost completed my PhD down in Champaign, Illinois in engineering. And as I explore my career options in this next chapter of my life, I thought Rotary, what a cool club I've heard about for so many years, but I wanted to come and be part of something that meant more than just building a career. I wanted to see where my talents could help people in need, and through a community that wants to do more of this service, humanitarian and development efforts all over the world. So I'm delighted to be here. I have had the pleasure to meet so many of you guys. Thank you for having me back, and I can't wait to meet more of you guys should I get the opportunity to join officially.
Awesome. Thank you. And we have guests online. If you would like to unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Oh, it looks like Roz is actually a Rotarian from the Rotary Club of La Crosse, she says.
Oh, welcome, Roz.
Yes, Ina is one of my most favorite people in the whole world, and you get to have her with you a lot. So I appreciate and envy you to have her in your life as much as I enjoyed having met her at TriCon in the Wisconsin Dells a couple of years ago. And I fell in love with Ina, and that's all she wrote from there on.
Okay. Anyone else online? Nope. All right, great. So we have our weekly volunteer opportunity at the Cornerstone Center every Wednesday from 2 to 5 or 5 to 7:30 to help. It's a soup kitchen where we make about 200 meals every week. So please feel free to come by to greet or help us cook. I always need help cooking. We have our community service scholarship for college students. Applications are due November 30th. Do not forget to donate to the Rotary Foundation. That is how we do what we do. That is how we help to eradicate polio with that. And so with that, every piggy bank on the table, whatever is collected today, our beautiful, cute little piggy banks will go toward world polio eradication. You make sure you want to download the Ignite app for our members. It's in your phone. You'll be able to pay your bill, register for things. And when you meet people who say, I want to know more about Rotary, you can take down their name and email address and bam, send it to them right then and there. You won't have to forget till later. Andrew is not here, but Joel is here, and Joel can help you out if you have questions. All of our committee meetings are listed in a gyrator and online. They're on the calendar. They are always looking for more members, so please sign up for a committee that you are interested in. All of our upcoming meetings that we have: Frank McKinney on October 31st, Dr. Doreen Weiss, Jane Metzinger on November 14th, and then we have the Honorable Tony Prepwinkle on November 21st, who will be here. As always, we say if you're going to miss a lunch, please let us know as soon as possible so we don't have immense food waste. When people don't show up, we pay for a meal and it goes to waste and gets thrown out, which is not what we wish to have. And with that, we have the four-way test. So if we could please stand, and if Marga could help me lead everyone in the four-way test.
Thank you, Alita. So the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. 1, is it the truth? 2, is it fair to all concerned? 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? 4, will it be beneficial? Will it be fun? Yes.
And with that, I adjourn our meeting.